What's up, everybody? Welcome to Solana Weekly. This is your host, Thomas, and I want to thank you for joining in. Let's take a dive into the latest trends, use cases, and people behind the incredible growth of the Solana ecosystem. None of this is financial advice, but I'm hoping that all of this is alpha. Now let's get to the show. All right, we've got Maurice here to give us a deep dive into what he's up to these days at Lulo. Let's get into some personal finance, and hopefully we can get into a little bit of his time on the exec team at MonkDAO as well. Welcome to the show, Maurice.
Hey. Pleasure to be here. Nice to formally meet face to face. We've been kind of interacting in the interwebs for quite some time now. So it's always nice to put faces with PFPs and faces with usernames. And yeah, nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
yeah, definitely. No, pleasure to meet you. And yeah, I've had my SMB, my monk, for a couple years now. As we were talking about before, I bought my SMB and I was like super excited to get in the community. It was, oh, he's got a water bottle, he's got the sweatshirt, he's got all the swag. I've got my shirt on too.
Accidental
Accident.
too. Like absolutely not planned out. I just grabbed this hoodie off the chair this morning and this bottle sits on my desk. So it's not by design.
Well, it's amazing either way. But my plan when I bought my SMB was always to like go to all of the crypto events, like meet up with everybody in person. You know, SMBs always throw the best parties. And then we had our first baby. So I have done zero traveling, zero meetups and everything, but I still consider myself part of the community, you know?
You are actually one of the few names that like I know, and like when I hear Tommy Bahamas or I see your PFP, the two are correlated. So
Oh,
whatever
that's
that
amazing.
means, you're doing a great job on the internet at least. People, I know who you are. It's a nice thing.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment, I guess. I'll take that as a compliment. And you just got back from Art Basel. Is it Art Basel? Art Basel?
It's Art Basel.
Basel.
Fun fact too, it's actually like wasn't originally in Miami. It used to be in Europe. But
Uh-huh.
now the Miami version is the core one that people know about. And yeah, I was just in Miami for Art Basel. It was super fun. Happy to talk about that if you want me to.
Yeah, oh no, I just wondered if it was some fun. You know, I always think of like Miami as like the coolest place you could go to. Like crypto's there, you know, like you go to like the strip club and you can spend Bitcoin there or something like that.
Yeah, so funny. Like I'm born and raised in New York City,
Uh-huh.
and New York and Miami have this weird connection. And
Yeah.
I grew up with family in Miami. I lived in Miami at one point. Yeah, Art Basel was phenomenal. It was a really great experience. I got to see family. I got to hang out with a bunch of monkeys. It was way slower than most of the conferences or most of the events that I attend, because it was like a little less DeFi crypto focused and a little more NFT art focused, but um, you know, plenty of people who buy art also transact on in crypto, and
Yeah.
NFT holders use DeFi. So, there was lots and lots of overlap, and I got to go to the Solana booth at the Art Basel convention itself, which was one of the main reasons why I went. Um,
Mhm.
and a close friend of mine, Tony, was Tony Placencia, who has Grifane bot. If anybody's listening and aware that his token, that token has taken off. But either way, he was involved in the booth itself, so wanted to get down there to support them. And then monkey miss dinner. So it
Mhm.
was really lovely to hang out with some monkey friends that I haven't seen in a while. And you know monkeys are everywhere, so it's always
Yeah.
like really, really nice to reconnect and make new connections. And yeah, I
Oh, that's
ramble a
awesome.
lot too, Thomas, so feel
Oh,
free to interject. Don't hesitate to interrupt me.
no, I'm the same way, and I always write up the 20 things that I want to hit, but then I usually don't even end up looking at any of my questions. I love hearing about Miami and the monkeys. We'll get more to monkeys down in a little bit, but what I really wanted you to come on for was we were chatting about personal finance on Twitter, and I was like, man, I want to talk some more about that. And then I was like, all right, you are the main representative of Lulo. right?
Yeah.
And Lulo is
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite protocols in all of crypto. I was telling you this a little bit before, but it's like it feels like magic, right? Like I really do think that it's one of like the coolest protocols in crypto, just because like you can't even do something like this outside of crypto. It's the easiest protocol to use, right? You just go to the website, deposit, and instantly you're earning really good yield. We can get more into how that works, and you probably have a better explanation of it than that. But like from a user perspective, it's amazing.
Yeah, from a user perspective, for me personally, beyond the fact that like as you said, I'm kind of the face of Lulo. I'm head of growth. I'm not one of the founders, but I am like in the trenches. I'm out there every day, preaching the gospel of Lulo, and in an ecosystem that is just wrought with gambling and degeneracy and trying to get rich overnight. I find Lulo to be like a very refreshing, realistic um, addition to anyone's personal financial stack, but
Yep.
also like a phenomenal example of what crypto can be for the masses, right? Like
Yeah.
today in crypto, in DeFi, in several different ecosystems, a lot of the focus is not on sustainability or reliable, consistent interest on digital dollars, right? Most of the fervor, most of the attention goes to yield farming and yield pools and airdrop leveraging and meme coins and like all of that is good and fun and like I don't get me wrong, like I do all of it, but you know if I'm gonna think long term and if I'm gonna think like responsibly, right? Think about like my finances from a responsibility perspective. Lulo is like my holy grail. I've been in or around Bitcoin since 2011. I've been in a few cycles. I've lost a lot of money, right? And
Oh
I was
yeah.
like an
Yep.
NFT degen. I traded a lot. I bought a lot. I supported a lot of people that never actually produced anything with the money that I put into those projects. And when I entered into this cycle, I really was adamant about, my personal finances being managed properly. And I'm risk on, right? Like all of my finances are basically on chain in crypto. So for me, it's super important. And, I think like we try to embody that. We try to embody, responsible finances. And um, Lulo truly has become like my baby on the branding, marketing, kind of like communication front. But all credit goes to Braun Guy and Nice Shoot and Justin and just like the development team has been super focused and all year long we've built on user feedback and I think that has been one of our core competencies, one of our core points that have made us stand apart from the pack is we listen to our users, we build on user feedback, and then we're very focused on brand building and you know, building loyalty, right? Like making people
Yeah.
feel something when they see Lulo or think of Lulo or interact with Lulo. So I'll pause there because I spit out a lot of
No,
information.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's a ton of like really good information. And um, I mean, when it comes to crypto, I generally think of like my profile as risk on, especially like right now. It's like we're out of the bear market. It's a bull market. Like I consider myself risk on, but like when you look at the levels of risk that people are taking right now, like it's out of hand, right? Like what did we just have? Like $2 billion wiped off of liquidity in the last couple days or in the last day.
yeah,
Um, and I mean that level's insane. I mean, that's talking about leverage right there, but think about all the meme coins as well on top of that, where it's like people are thinking their risk off part of their portfolio is a frog coin, where it's like that's not how this works. I mean,
no,
if you look at things from like a traditional finance side, if you get 8% a year, you're doing great. The like a traditional personal finance guy will say, find yourself a good ETF, Vanguard, whatever, and you get your 8% per year. you're doing great. Where in crypto, it seems like the mindset is if you're not getting a 2x in a day, you're broke, you know?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah, and that's not a realistic that's not long-term sustainable reliable, right?
exactly.
Um you, just real quick, I'm interrupting you, but I think it's super interesting. Like we have talked a lot internally about how advertising or marketing rates that are over 8, 9, 10% to, and I don't like calling them normies, but like retail, right? To
Yeah.
non-crypto people, those rates seem astronomical. They almost
Oh yeah.
feel and look scammy. And they're not from Lulo, but you're right. Like my family and my friends who are earning 6% or were earning 6% on their dollars in a high yield savings account were ecstatic, right? They
Oh
were
yeah.
like, this is phenomenal. And
Yeah.
now that we're seeing the rates drop, I know like my fiance got an email from Wealthfront. Your 5.2% is now 4.7%.
Yeah.
Coinbase emailed me, you're now down to 4.2% if you keep USDC on there. And not only is it dropped to 4.2%, but you also have to have a certain amount of deposits in there to even hit these rate thresholds. So that's
Yeah.
something that I love about Lulo is like $100 minimum deposit size right now, and you're earning the best rates available across Solana,
Oh yeah.
and the yellow tape and the red tape is really minimized. And I could go deep into like cutting out the middlemen's and like intermediaries and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, I think Lulo is something that is so simple to understand and can fit into anybody's personal financial stack, whether you're in crypto or not. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that we try to really harp on is reliability, sustainability, consistency. Actually, that's great. I haven't actually thought or talked about that much lately, but it's consistent, right? You are
Yeah.
consistently earning right now well over 10, 12, 14%. But for the whole year, I think we've averaged up to Q3, it was like 14, 15% on USDC. It's higher now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's like in the 20s is what, or at least especially on the PayPal or on PYUSD, it's been like consistently over 20% with like
yeah.
some spikes up to like 50%.
Yeah, and I like try to really be careful talking about that too,
Yeah,
because like it's true, like it's a reality. Like you can deposit and access that now, but sometimes it does sound too good to be true for some people. So I yeah, like I try to think about it before I talk about it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a significant increase in the actual yield that you're getting. And I mean, historically, savings accounts for us have paid nothing, right? Like I've had a savings account that gets like 0.01%, like basically no yield. And like pre a couple years ago, the rates, zero rates, 0% interest rates paid out nothing on savings accounts. Like we just recently got those, 5, 6% high interest rates on savings accounts in normal accounts. And it's like, that makes so much sense. Like that personally like made me want to save, right?
Yeah.
Like when you see like a little bit of yield back, like 5% back on your money is great. Like yearly, it's really good. And I think that has like a psychological effect where it's like, okay, like actually like I can save money and then that money is going to grow.
I
Like I think seeing that is such like a good like reward mechanism that
yeah.
is going to like, oh, okay, like I just made 20 SOL off an NFT trade or off of a trade. Like I'm gonna throw some of that into a savings account and like that's off, that's risk off and that's gonna be getting yield on the side. And I know it's like if I need to pay taxes, if I need to do whatever, that's set aside.
Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't maybe that like I have kind of like a conservative view on a lot of this where it's like I don't like just take everything and YOLO it in. Like I definitely have like keep a good amount in Lulo and just in normal bank accounts too. But I don't think that's the case for everybody.
No, it's not. You made me think of like 18 different things. So first thing was we have been trying to kind of push like this anti-YOLO, anti-FOMO culture and
Yeah.
like crypto. And I would even say like, I'm 35, like my generation and younger, like instant gratification, FOMO, YOLO, it's like in everything, from
Yeah.
buying sneakers to attending events to being on Instagram to not miss something, like it's everywhere. And
Yeah.
we've really tried to push this like manage less, live more. This like idea of you can earn sustainable money, you can earn passive income, you could save more for your future without it being a full-time job, a full-time task. Like DeFi is complicated, DeFi is time consuming, and it's not personalized. And it really like I get so frustrated sometimes chasing like chasing meme coin things or like playing on DLMM pools on Meteora and oftentimes I come back to like, you know what? I'm gonna take the little bit of profit I made and I'm just gonna put it back in Lulo and I'm gonna sit back and relax. And something else that you said which really like hit home for me was saving money was never like cool. Like saving money wasn't fun. Saving money wasn't like something you bragged about. Not that I would brag about saving money today, but like it was never a flex. Like, how much can I save? Or like, how can you save in a cool way? And uh obviously, like we can't make saving money cool, but we can make the feeling of saving money cool, right? And we did this, I did this presentation in London, which was called Making Saving Money Cool Again. And it was about the idea that all of the traditional ways of saving money in the US and building wealth in the US and abroad in mostly in the West, right? Was buying property or investing in the stock market.
Yeah.
And buying property is now harder than ever before. The average American needs 6 years of income to purchase a home, right?
Yeah.
And buying into the stock market is also not as appealing to my generation and younger. And I think like this is something that Lulo and crypto and DeFi in general can really capitalize on. And last thing, what you were saying about the savings rates from banks. So I've done a ton of research into this. US national average is 0.59% APR. Simple interest, not compounding. You get like a monthly deposit on your interest or a quarterly deposit on your interest. And those are from the GSIBs, the globally systemic banks that like literally can't go under.
Yeah.
And Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they offer nothing. And they
Yeah.
make exponentially more money off of you than what they offer you in
Oh
return.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, and it's really, really fascinating. Like I'm not a finance bro, right? I'm like an artist, I'm a people person, I'm a marketer, I'm a brander. And for me, like learning about all this was really eye-opening. And I actually like I just pushed a thread for Lulo today about why we call lending rates in crypto savings rates for us because when you deposit into a bank, you're earning a savings rate and they're taking your money and doing other stuff with it. It's the same thing in crypto, or the same thing with Lulo and these over collateralized lending pools. When you make a deposit into Lulo, we route for the best rate. We deposit into one of these over collateralized lending pools, and a trader is using your money while paying you interest to borrow it.
Yeah.
So I think it's like really, really fascinating, like the how different things can look and feel when you cut out the middlemen and you cut out the intermediaries, which are these big banks that essentially you are the product for them as well, right? They are using you um, for their own ends.
Yeah, and you're not like with Lulo, you're not dependent on what the Fed rate is, what the big banks are willing to pay you, right? Like this is like a completely independent form of yield from that, right? So
Exactly.
I think it's kind of cool on that front. And one thing that I want to do, and maybe this is going to be wrong, but like what I want to do is try to compare like what Lulo does in crypto in the real world. So it's like when I first learned out about Lulo, I was like, all right, how do I make sense of this? Like, how do I explain it as easily as possible? So basically, what Lulo does for you is you deposit your money in. And if you were to do this in the real world, you would have somebody running from bank to bank every 60 minutes looking for who is going to pay the highest yield for holding your money for that next 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Like there's just no way that anybody is going to do that, right? And it's constantly compounding and it's good for like both sides too, right? Like we want the yield, but actually like the protocols or the banks in this scenario, they need the liquidity, right? Like they're not giving out this yield for like the good of their heart, right? Like they're giving out this yield because they need that money and they're willing to pay more for it, right? So they need the liquidity. We want the yield. Lulo is like the middle, like it's like a programmed middleman that
Yeah.
is like working for you to give you the best yield. And it's
Yeah.
across what is it, five or six different platforms that it's going to go to, and it finds the best yield for you and gives it to you.
Yep. So we have six over collateralized lending pools integrated through Lulo. Three of them are on Camino. So the main pool, the alt pool, and the JLP pool. And
Yep.
then Drift, MarginFi, and Saved, formerly known as Solend.
Yeah.
And those are the largest liquidity venues on Solana today. Camino has over 1 billion, Drift has over 1 billion, and MarginFi and Solend or Save are a little bit behind them. But exactly as you said, Lulo routes when you make your initial deposit, we route for the best rate, and then every 60 minutes we will reroute your deposit if a better rate becomes available. We don't custody your funds. So that is actually a major differentiator between us and anything in traditional finance is like we're sort of just a tool or a layer on top. So when you deposit through Lulo, it's always earning yield, right? It's always at one of these pools. Um, Something else that I would add to your analogy is actually like not only would you have to route between the banks, but also like the fintech apps, right? Which use banks, but the fintech apps are all offering better rates than Chase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America. So you'd have to be routing through all of these fintech apps and the banks, and at the end of the day you wouldn't be earning what you'd earn through Lulo in as simple a manner, right? It's just
And you
dollars in,
couldn't,
dollars out.
yeah, you couldn't even do it because if you're transferring between an app, like I have a high interest savings account that I use, and it takes, 2 days to send money out or 2 days to send money in. So right there, you're going from every 60 minutes to every 2 days, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and then like that gets me wanting to go down the whole stablecoin rabbit hole and how like I think personally stablecoins are the greatest thing to ever come out of crypto. They solve
They
more.
have the best product market fit. I mean, they are like an extension of the dollar. I think they're great too.
Yeah, and they solve more real world problems than Bitcoin or Solana as a currency. More people in the world are debanked or underbanked or have no banking access. Cross-border payments, remittances are incredibly expensive. I know for me personally, like I've struggled with traditional finance. Like I've been debanked. I've had to cash a check from work at MoneyGram and lose 25-30% of my money. And it was devastating, right? Like if you're living paycheck to paycheck, or if you're not even living paycheck to paycheck, you're living like deal to deal or like opportunity to opportunity, like stable coins can completely change your life. And I know people in South America, Latin America, I know people in Africa and Southeast Asia who transact solely in stable coins and they've
Yeah.
completely changed their lives.
They save in dollars, or a lot of it's tether, right? So they'll
Yeah, yeah,
save in stable coins, and then when they actually need to transact in their local currency, they'll transfer it out and like meet somebody in person sometimes to get that actual cash, just because like the variance of like the actual value of their currency goes up and down so much that the dollar is so much more stable, right?
right. And like all of these antiquated rails, like you were talking about, like it shouldn't take 2 or 3 days for your money to get deposited and cleared and then show up in your balance, right? Like
Yeah.
one of my favorite little anecdotal stories that I tell recently is my best friend's Moroccan. He lives in Morocco, he lives in Casablanca.
Uh-huh.
We work together. I've had to send him money. We got paid by a client in cash. I needed to send him fiat, and I couldn't do it online. So I had to go into the bank. I had to
Uh-huh.
get with a banker. The banker
Uh-huh.
then needed to troubleshoot for about 40 minutes to figure out why he couldn't wire from my account to my best friend's account in Morocco. And then once he did figure it out, it took like 4 days for it to get to him, and then he had to wait for his bank to clear it. So just like this long drawn out process. And just going back to an earlier comment, like I can't see any current younger generations dealing with that, right? Putting
No,
up
no
with that.
way.
No way.
Yeah, there is no way. Well, and like how many intermediaries were there, from when you wired that money to when he actually received it, right? In those
Yep.
4 days, like 3 or 4 different people got their hands on that money. They probably took a cut of it. Like it probably wasn't cheap to send that money.
Right.
Where it's
Oh
like,
yeah, wire fees. I had to pay wire fees. I'm pretty
yeah,
sure he had to pay conversion rates.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's just the whole system is just antiquated, right? Like
yeah.
it is overdue for the legacy systems are way, way, way overdue for upgrades. And crypto, so like DeFi, Solana, like these rails, these new networks, like they solve those problems. They offer those solutions.
Yeah, they do. And it's almost like they've been like gatekeeping these solutions for so long without like upgrading anything. They've had a monopoly on money and transmission of money for so long that it's like, all right, we'll just build our own system. Like I feel like that's kind of like what crypto is, and it's kind of like punk rock that they did it, that it's like, all right, this isn't working for us. I'm gonna build something that works. I'm gonna build Lulo that works way better than what you guys do, and anyone in the world can use it.
Yep, exactly. And that's like that's the beauty of Lulo, that's the beauty of stable coins, that's the beauty of Solana and decentralized finances. Let's get rid of the gatekeepers, let's get rid of the intermediaries, let's democratize the system. Like one of my northern lights, one of my favorite things to say, especially in these situations on recordings, is like I truly do believe blockchain technology is a great equalizer of the world. It
Yeah,
gives everybody an opportunity to participate in a system that is built for everybody. The traditional financial system is not built for you or I. Unless you're a multi-millionaire, Thomas, and I didn't know that, the system is
I'm
not
not. I'm
built for
not.
us. Right.
Yeah.
And only when you are at the top, only when you are in the upper class, in the upper echelon, do these banking systems truly work in your favor, right? Up until that point, it definitely benefits you, but not to the degree that it could, and not to the degree that it should. And
Yeah, and
I'm
I'd even take that a step further. Like we're in the US, right? Like if I wanted to send you money through traditional rails, like I could send you PayPal, right? I could send you Venmo. Like we're pretty blessed here in the US,
yeah,
but like when we start talking about other countries, third world countries, like that's where it's sad to hear that like people's money is devaluing in an insane amount of money, right? Like
yeah,
people, like money should be like you get paid for your time, you get paid for your work, like that's like saved up time. And to see that just like devalue for no reason, government reasons, wars, like nothing that you did, it's incredibly sad to hear that. So like it's the people that are outside of our system, I think, that can really benefit from, not just getting to our level, but from getting like to what like the level of banking that like billionaires can use, right? Like,
right, right. And I mean, so like part of why I think crypto has not been adopted to the degree in the US that it has in other countries is one, it's a threat to the traditional system
yeah,
that profits greatly off of our backs.
yeah,
And B, we have a system that is generally working for like most people. But
yeah,
if you're in Argentina and you are earning in Argentine pesos, like you have been losing value every single day. If you're earning naira in Nigeria, like your money is getting devalued every single day, let alone not having banking access. So I
yeah,
think Lulo in conjunction with the adoption of stable coins and other, rails that allow people to transact and live their lives on chain, it's coming, right? It's happening right now. We're watching it
Yeah.
happen. Lulo is an example of it. Stablecoin adoption is an example of it. I loved that you brought up the PayPal Venmo example, and this is something that like I don't see or hear a lot of people talking about, but PayPal has PYUSD. It's a
Oh yeah.
sixty billion dollar publicly traded company on the Nasdaq. They
Yeah.
own Venmo.
Yeah.
Venmo is in almost everybody's pocket in the US. I don't like my mom is not technically savvy and neither is my dad. They both have Venmo and Cash App, right? Um,
Yeah.
when Venmo starts using PayPal to finalize transactions instead of Venmo starts using stablecoins and PYUSD instead of whatever systems they're using now. I'm not only excited, like I'm just like itching, can't wait for these things to change and happen.
Yeah, well, it's
One
not even
last thing.
that.
Yeah, go.
It's not even just that they are using the system. They incentivize the hell out of us to use their system. They
Yeah.
pay tens of millions of dollars to get people to use PYUSD. And like in my mind, it's like how bullish are they on our industry? Look at how much they spend, you know?
And no marketing, dude.
Yeah.
No marketing. They're not talking about PYUSD. They're not
Yep.
promoting PYUSD on socials or in emails or anything. It's just like very low key, almost like they're just setting up the stage for when,
They do.
everything starts like the fireworks go off.
Yeah.
Which makes me even more excited, because that's also like kind of how Lulo has operated. We've never announced the announcement. We've never like teased what's coming unless it's like direct and very like this is what we're doing and you'll see it sooner than later. So it gets me very, very bullish, very, very excited. And I think like last thing I would say on that, Venmo is a perfect example of where crypto can and should live because at the end of the day, like we should be disambiguating away the blockchain tech and it should just be the benefit of the tech inside of the app, the benefit of the tech inside of the website. People don't need to know their, 12 word passphrase. Like they shouldn't know their private key. There should be these systems that just hide it all away and you benefit from the system. And I think like Lulo tries to do that to the best of our ability today. Simple UI, simple UX, very straightforward, very simple, very easy to understand. And I think like Venmo and PayPal are going to do the same thing. Um,
Yeah, I
I
think you
get
gotta, I think I love that. And it's like abstracting the blockchain away is when like it's gonna really click for people. And the way that I think of it too is you couldn't really do that before Solana came along, right? Like nobody's gonna do that in an Ethereum transaction and sit there and wait 10 minutes for it to confirm or
no,
however long it takes, right?
no.
Like they're not gonna pay, a couple dollars per transaction. So I think that and that's kind of how I always felt when I started using Solana. It's like, all right, like user interfaces have always been great. Like Phantom was like a game changer of a wallet. So like UI was always great, but like everything, you could actually just use the blockchain. Like
Yeah.
it was a blockchain meant to be used. It's cheap, it's
Yep.
quick. The fees are like, I don't know, less than a cent, half a cent.
Negligible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like not even
negligible.
there. Yeah, so I think it's because of that. And something that you mentioned earlier on was like the focus on user feedback and like making users happy. Like I feel like that came from like the core. Like I feel like that was like a Tolly and Raj thing where I was like, all right, like this is where we're messing up. Let's fix that. Like this is what we're hearing. Let's fix that. And it's like it shows because like Tolly will still do that on Twitter. Like, what's the problem here? Like it, and I think that that's kind of how a lot of things started. And I think that
Yep.
it's just continued to go where it's like, I was a user of Solana in the bear market. If I had an issue with a transaction and I tweeted about it, I'd get a DM from somebody from the team in a second, right? Like they
Pretty
were like
crazy.
super attentive. And I mean, it's still like that and it's a bull market, right?
Yep. 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 I have this saying about Ethereum, and I love Ethereum. Like, don't get me wrong. I
Yeah,
am not bashing Ethereum. Like, we wouldn't be here today without Ethereum, right?
100%.
But for me, it is, and for most people, it's cost prohibitive and value destroying to actually use the network. It
Yeah.
costs hundreds of dollars to do transactions sometimes. It's slow, it's not performant, it's security focused only. And for me, when I discovered Solana, it was like, oh my God, this is the promise of crypto. This is what it's supposed to feel like. I've made it. This is it. Like we're here now. And
Yeah.
it's only improved, right? Like we're seeing the network is battle tested at this point, and we're still in beta, right? Like people
Yeah.
lose sight that like it's still building, it's still developing, and if it's
Yeah.
as incredible as it is today, what will it be like in a year, 5 years, 10 years? Like this is the future. We are here. We're living it right now. And
Yeah.
that makes me very, very excited.
100%. It's like ETH when I used to use it like what 2017 or so, and it was like every time I had to actually use a transaction, I would like plan to make sure that I had enough for gas. I had to have this and that. And there was so much that went into just making one transaction. Where now it's like I just click a button, as long as I have like 0.001 soul in there, we're good,
Yep. Yep.
like it the like it wasn't just like a 10% improvement. Like it was like 100x improvement. It's like significant.
Night and
Yeah.
day improvement. And even in 2021 when all the wallets were new and figuring things out and there was no like JSON Metaplex standard for NFTs, so like you couldn't see the NFTs in the wallets, and
Yeah.
even then the UX was 10 times better than MetaMask or participating in Ethereum. So yeah, like I'm a Solana maxi for sure, but I'm not anti other chains. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that we really need to push. We need to be less tribalistic. We need to be more inclusive and welcoming and just like, you know, positive sum thinking, rising tide lifts all boats. And we're seeing the Ethereum gentlemen and gentlewomen come over, right? They're coming.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. That's what definitely what it
transacting
seems like.
they're transacting on Solana. We just saw MakerDAO, now known as Sky. Sky
Yep.
ecosystem came into Solana recently. DAI, which is the original,
Like the first
it's not the
stablecoin, right?
first,
Or
it's not the
one of
first
one of them.
stable
One
coin.
of them. Yeah.
It's not the first stable coin ever. There was something called BitUSD, which I don't have all of the research in my head easily accessible. But DAI was one of the first stable coins. It was the first DeFi native stable coin.
Yep.
And they just bridged, over 80 million or more over to Solana in the last few weeks. If
Yeah.
not, I think it's way more now, but like that is a major sign for me that the liquidity is coming, the users are coming. We already had them, but even more now. Yeah.
Yeah. And even like Pudgy Penguins are launching a coin. They're an ETH NFT. They're the number one ETH NFT, right? I think so. And they are launching their coin on Solana. It's crazy. Like how
Doesn't get
like
more bullish.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And they're not even the first, right? Like Simon's Cat, which is like a meme coin from Binance chain from BNB, like they launched it's the same token, but just like now they have a Solana version, right? DAI has their Ethereum version and they have the Solana version, PayPal, ETH, and Solana. So it's just becoming a multi-chain world, but I
yeah,
think Solana will be like if it's if our universe is heliocentric, then the cryptoverse is going to be Solana centric, like everything's
yeah,
going to revolve around Solana, and I love that. I'm here for it.
yeah, yeah. It's sometimes I like don't believe that a lot of what's happening is real. Like when you think back like a couple years, like I think I think I got into Solana when it was like $30. It went up to $260, then it crashed down to $8. When it was at $8, like that's actually when I started this podcast because it was pretty grim. Like MonkDAO was still like it was still kind of like a little bit of an NFT bull market. So like we were still like chucking NFTs at each other, and like there was still a lot of stuff going on, but it wasn't looking good. And you think look at the sentiment then, it was all like everybody in ETH was just dunking on Sol. And like from the inside perspective, like teams were still building, NFTs were still launching, like protocols were still being built around them. Like we financialized the hell out of NFTs, like built insane things and leverage on NFTs and all this stuff that you could do. Like, was it the best thing? Probably not, but like teams were still building it and people were using it, right? Like there
Yeah,
was still a
yeah.
lot going on. So I was like, you know what, like this isn't going away. Like yeah,
No,
like it just seemed like, all right, my bet is here. I'm staying with it, and like it actually it's all paid off, right? Like it's crazy.
there's so that story that you just told about the idea that we were left for dead and Solana community didn't give up and we kept building and we stayed and we kept cooking and we kept pushing. Um, I feel like that's a really amazing example of the power of brand and the power of loyalty and community building around a brand.
Yeah,
And that's something I've tried to emulate a bit with Lulo is just like garner such loyalty that even in weird times or dark times, your people will be there with you because they believe in it, because they see the power, they experience the benefit, and they want to see it continue growing.
yeah,
And that's what happened with Solana. Like I'll never forget leaving Breakpoint and I've been to all the breakpoints. So like I was at the first breakpoint when Solana like hit an all-time high. And I remember sitting and watching Orca like hit an all-time high. And then 2020 after Breakpoint 2022, I was went to visit my best friend in Morocco and we're watching FTX crash like
oh man,
we're on a highway in the middle of the desert and I'm on my phone and like I'm trying to buy as much soul as I could. And like I couldn't buy that much because a lot of my money was in FTX, but like
yeah,
I knew we weren't going away, right? I
yeah,
knew that we were staying, that there was just too much brand loyalty, there was too much opportunity, too many lives had been changed and improved. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I guess that's a big piece of how I've been trying to drive some of the marketing and branding around Lulo is like we're improving your life, we're improving your personal financial stack. Like, let's fucking get it. Like,
yeah,
let's do
yeah.
it. Like it's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a really good platform, and it's like I think what see it doing, or at least like what I hope to see it doing, is like it's gonna provide the carrot at the end of the stick, right? Like, hey, save your money. First of all, that's the most important part. Like have your savings, and then on top of that, we're gonna give you really good yield, right? Like I'm like a yield maxi, so like I'm looking for like a good amount of yield, but like in exchange for like the side effect of going after that yield is like, oh wow, like I built up a savings account in my Lulo account, like unintentionally, right? And like
Yeah.
I want to hear that from more people because like you need to be saving your money, right? Like our parents told us that when we were younger, like save 20% of your paycheck. It's like no, like that wasn't the case. If you don't have any money, it's hard to save it. But when you
I
do, it's something that needs to be done.
Yeah, and I mean, I would go ahead and say like I didn't even get that as a kid, like growing up. Like my parents didn't teach me about personal finances. They didn't teach me to save. They didn't teach me to balance a checkbook or, what does a credit score mean? How do you build credit? Like, why does it matter? And the basis of a lot of that is just simply saving, right? Like
Yeah.
saving money for the future, building wealth for the future. Um, I don't know why something you said was made me want to go double check like what's the Lulo directed liquidity today? Because we don't call it TVL because we don't actually custody the funds. We call it directed liquidity. We're at
Mhm.
81.67 million. So
Oh, are you really?
yeah, so clearly people are trying to save. And when we started this morning, we were at 0.12 million. So I'm guessing people are taking profits with Solana ripping up again. And, it's really, really, really exciting. Yeah, I don't know why I went down that tangent, but the directed liquidity, the TVL is, um, it's I
It's good.
kind of get it. Like I lose my train of thought, I'm just like, holy moly. We started this year with like 300K in deposits, and we are nearing 100 million, and like
That's
that's
awesome.
major. Yeah, yeah, it's
Well, I mean,
major.
it's proof that you're doing something good, and I mean it just like makes sense for me. And as far as like I was talking about, like I used to at least think of all of my crypto portfolio is risk on 100%, right? Because it used to just be like, all right, you have Bitcoin or you have Ethereum, and if it's in the crypto market, it's crypto, right? Like
Yeah,
you'd have to sell your Bitcoin to
yeah.
dollars in order
And
to get it
I
off.
didn't think of stablecoin lending. I didn't think of holding
Yeah,
stablecoins in 2021.
yeah,
Only reason why I had stablecoins was because that's what my paychecks were coming in.
yeah,
Once I
yeah,
got the paycheck, I either off-ramped it to pay bills or immediately converted it into NFTs, meme coins, soul, bullshit,
yeah,
like just bullshit. And now this has been game changing for me too. Like
yeah.
I personally have 30-40% of my entire net worth in Lulo. And that's
Really.
because 30 or 40% of my entire net worth is in USDC or PYUSD or some stable coin. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean nowadays, like with stablecoins, you don't have to be risk on. Like being on chain doesn't mean 100% risk anymore, right? Like you can actually like build a full like stable, not stable, but like have some risk, have some stable coins, have a savings where it's not 100% YOLO.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that when I was thinking about like, all right, there's personal finance, but like, is there like crypto personal finance? And there really isn't. Like the one thing that I kept coming back to is like Kobe's pyramid that he tweeted out a long time ago, where it's like maybe 50% Bitcoin, 20% somewhat risky, and then the top five is just like dog shit, like leverage,
Yeah.
meme coins, whatever. So I still like kind of follow that, where it's like I try to keep it somewhat like I don't want to deal with risk. I don't want to have to check my portfolio every 5 seconds in case everything's dipping. But like I love following like the latest coin and like the latest protocol and stuff. And at times it's like, yeah, I want a little leverage sometimes. But is that all the time? No, So I think that keeping that like on low amounts, like kind of playing with it, that's fine. But I think that like having the majority of like somewhat a stable portfolio is gonna like allow you to live your life and live a
Yeah.
much better life if you keep doing
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Something that like I've gone into this cycle, and something that I'm probably going to try to push a little bit more in the Lulo content is oftentimes trading less is more profitable.
Oh yeah.
Oftentimes not chasing, not trying to like over trade, Like I over traded the other day. I have a nice big debt on Drift because I had a perp open and I just like wasn't paying attention, and a scam liquidated me, and I didn't need to be trading.
Yeah.
I am profiting every single day, little by little, in Lulo, in DLMM pools. Like I have a few different strategies that I play around with. I don't need to leverage trade. I don't
Yeah.
need to meme coin trade. And I do sometimes, and I always come back to smaller wins, taking profits, putting it into Lulo, and it keeps compounding. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love Lulo. I will use it every single day,
Yeah.
regardless of whether I'm with them or not, whether I'm the face or not. It's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, I do what I like to call like trading the edges of my portfolio. Like
I like that.
I keep like, I keep my Bitcoin, I don't even touch it. I keep my soul, and I kind of set like a couple marks of like, all right, if we get to all-time high, like I'm gonna sell 5%. I didn't, but I sold a little bit below. So I did take some off the top. Like I keep a large, like way too large stack of bonk. And it's like I don't ever really want to touch it, but like I get uncomfortable when things get too big. So I will sell a little bit on the top. And then you know what? I'll buy a little when it goes low, So things dumped in like a flash crash. I was able to buy more, right? Like, and I was even hesitant to buy it because I didn't want to pull it out of Lulo because I keep everything in Lulo. But but at times it's like that, you know, and how much was it of my total portfolio? This is like less than 1% of my portfolio, right? These aren't like big amounts, but it's like I feel like I have like agency. I'm not just like
Yep.
sitting around like the market's kicking me in the face over and over. It's like, no, you know what? Like the market dipped, I added a bit, I'm good. Like, there's something like some sort of like mentality that goes along with that too. And because I had the stables in there, it's like that's fine.
Yeah, I feel that, so I can relate to that so personally. Like, I never want to take any money out of Lulo, but also this is the first time in my life when I have been prepared and happy at every pullback. Because
Yeah,
every time the market shits a little bit, I have dry powder. I have stables that I can go take and deploy.
yeah,
And I have been doing, I mean, like, I'm not a great trader, but I swing trade a bit. And like, I'll take money out of Lulo. I'll buy my Solana. I'll wait a week. I'll sell it. I'll deposit it right back into Lulo. And it's just like this cycle of healthier personal financial management where it's less FOMO and YOLO, a little more strategic. And I love what you said. I wrote it down in my notes, like trading in the edges, right? Was that how you framed it?
yeah.
Trading
Or
on
just
the edges?
like trading the edges of my portfolio. So it's
Yeah,
like,
trading the edges of my portfolio. I
yeah,
love that. I might have to quote you and use that in some copy.
no, you're welcome
Yeah.
to. You're welcome to. Yeah, I have like I have trading view on my phone, and it'll say like what percentage I'm up or down, or what percentage up or down like Bitcoin, Sol, and Bonk are, and it's like nowadays when I see like, oh, Bonk's down 15%, it's like, all right, note to self, buy a little bit when I'm in front of the computer. It's not like go check my portfolio, it's going to zero. It's like, you know what? I'm confident in my positions. Like I'm pretty confident that this is not the end of the bull market.
Yep.
Like I still see like an immense amount of upside. Like let's think rationally. Don't make any harsh decisions and like buy a little bit more.
Yep.
Like I feel like that's been a pretty big game changer for me.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that 100%. And I recently was I'm like I'm a podcast maxi. I love
Oh, same.
podcasts.
Me
Like, I
too.
love podcasts. I don't know if you listen to Unchained, Laura Shin.
Oh yeah, yeah, she's
Yeah,
fantastic.
so I've been listening to her since she was like a Forbes uh
Yeah, yeah,
writer, and
she's been
like
doing this for
she's
years. That's like 2017, right?
yeah,
Or
dude,
really
she's
long time.
the original official crypto journalists. Like, there are
Yeah,
plenty of crypto journalists at CoinDesk and Cointelegraph. If you guys are listening, I love you, but Laura's the original.
yeah.
Um, she had Arthur Hayes on recently,
I
and
I love hearing him come on, but like, yeah,
he made he
she didn't take any of his shit. She
no. He made one thing he said that really rang true, and I think about it a lot these days specifically. Like, if you're worried, if you're checking the chart before you go to bed, or if you're worried about your portfolio, you're overexposed.
yeah, yeah,
And that really hit home for me and actually made me reposition some of my holdings and made me put more money into Lulo and made me take profits when like I otherwise thought I needed to make a 10x. And if you make a 2x and you compound that, like, it's great. Like,
oh
you
yeah,
people also kind of forget, like, you've only actually won when you sell,
yeah,
right? Only when you actualize the gains. And
yeah,
that's another reason why I love Lulo and stablecoins in particular. Like, I can actualize my winnings anytime I want on chain. And it doesn't mean I'm going into the bank, and it doesn't mean that I'm going into fiat. Like, as much as we might want to do crypto instead of fiat currencies, like, the reality is I need to pay bills. I need to buy things. I need to transact. And at the end of the day, like, I don't want to do that in Solana. I don't want to do that in Bitcoin. Good luck trying to, like, do Satoshis, like convert
Yeah. Oh
Satoshis
yeah.
for a coffee, right?
Yeah, it was
So
that was never gonna happen.
no, and I think like that even more kind of solidifies this whole kind of ecosystem that I'm building around like my personal financial stack and managing it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I really like personal finance and I actually really like traditional finance podcasts. Like my like all-time favorite podcast is the Tim Ferriss podcast. Um, I'm almost 40, so
classic.
I'm almost 40, so he's like around my same age. He has like amazing guests on there. But one of the ones that he had on a while back was Ramit Sethi, and he did the book. He kind of went off a little bit on this last election. I think he like rants against crypto and rants against like home ownership. But his book was like, I think it's like How to Get Rich or something along those lines. It's like kind of a catchy title, but it's like really good, like basic personal finance that's like save as much as you can, invest it in like good, get your 8% back. And it was like that's like what got me going with a lot of like personal finance in the beginning, and then ultimately that led me into crypto. Somehow, like he had a couple crypto people on. I think it was Kevin Rose,
Oh,
who's
cool.
he had
Yeah.
like he's always a guest on the Tim Ferriss show, and he had his show Modern Finance a while back, and totally came on to his podcast, and that's how I got into Solana. So he totally came on. I was like, man, that sounds great. This is like early 2022, 2021 maybe. And that's actually what got me into Solana. So it's,
Awesome.
kind of
That's
go full
super.
circle there.
That's super cool. This is like, I love this too, because like this is one of those rare times when I'm on a pod or like in an interview and I'm taking notes too. So
Yeah,
it's
there you
so
go.
awesome.
So a couple things that I did want to talk about was You know, uh, I think it was last cycle where there was a good amount of lending stables, but it was all on like centralized platforms, and it didn't go too well for them. I was on all of them. I got all of my money off, so I didn't really get hit, but it was BlockFi, it was Voyager, FTX,
Celsius.
Celsius, even FTX had like a lending part too. I feel like lending in crypto got a really bad name, but the flip side of that is all of the DeFi protocols that were offering lending were fine. Every single one of them, pretty much, they were fine, right? So it was really the centralized lenders where you couldn't see what was going on behind the scenes. You didn't know who they were lending to. You didn't know where your money was going because you couldn't see it on chain, right? I feel like Lulo is the opposite of that, where it's you're using multiple different DeFi protocols, but it's all on chain, right?
Yeah, it's all public. I mean, it's a public ledger, right? Like you could
Yeah.
track our program, you could track the money. Right now in the UI, you could even track where your deposits are going. You could see when they migrate. Sorry, my partner walked into the room.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just tested positive for COVID.
You did?
Yeah. Come
Oh,
talk to me when you're done.
okay, well. Sorry, she just
I'll
tested
I'll edit
positive.
the.
It might even be funny or good for the pod. She just tested positive for COVID, so
Oh no. I
that's
hope
not
she's all
fun.
right.
It's
Oh
not
man.
fun.
Yes.
She's a trooper, and my rock, and she got me my first full-time crypto gig.
Oh, no
Uh,
way.
um, so back to what we were talking about, the lending. So like Lulo's fully transparent. Like you could, check where your deposits are migrating. Um, and like the Celsiuses and the BlockFis, they were doing essentially like you were lending them your money and they were doing like sophisticated strategies or shitty sophisticated strategies clearly that
That's what
weren't
we found
taking
out. Yeah, that we found
that.
out after the fact, just how shitty they really were, right? It
Oh,
was like
dude.
handwritten
Yeah.
collateral notes from Three Arrows Capital, like some of the stuff that they were doing, like downright
Yeah.
criminal, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what ended
And
up happening as far as criminal cases, but like it was really bad.
yeah. And like it also really gave a terrible name to the industry because at that time you had like pension funds
Yep.
lending into Celsius and lending into BlockFi and you had like the beginnings of centralized traditional finance testing the waters of crypto. And
Yeah.
all of them thought centralized off-chain solutions would be the safest. And they ended up
Yeah.
being among the riskiest
Yeah.
because of the lack of transparency. So just to kind of speak to that about on Lulo, we are audited. Everyone we've integrated is fully audited. Everyone we've integrated is open source. Everyone we've integrated is battle tested, right? These are
Yeah.
protocols and platforms that take security as seriously as we do. We monitor deposits, we monitor the pools. We do not route funds into pools that are almost full or too full or getting full. We make sure that um, not only are you earning the best rate at any time, but we also do our best so you're earning the best rate in the safest way possible at any time.
Yeah.
Um, we'd be lying if we said that there wasn't additional smart contract risk. There is, right? You're participating in DeFi right now, but for 2025, that's our core focus is not only continuing to make the experiences seamless as possible and as enjoyable as possible, but also beefing up our security measures, beefing up our way of making sure that you stay safe while participating in crypto and DeFi and stablecoin lending. Um, so like that will be a theme for 2025. And so right now, just to review very quickly, we're fully audited. Everyone we've integrated is audited. We scan the network constantly for funkiness, if there's manipulation, if there's weird things. We don't route your money into a pool if it's almost full.
Mhm.
And we don't custody your funds. So there's not like an extra vector of attack if you were to hack Lulo, for instance.
Yeah, and you guys
So
have a page on your page. You can actually look at all of the different protocols that you guys are lending with. Look at, yes, they were audited. Look at that. And I think I don't know if this is still a thing, but there was a function where if you weren't comfortable with one of the protocols, you could select which ones you wanted to use. Was that?
yeah,
Yeah.
so absolutely. So right now, um, it would I don't want to screen share because it'll mess up the flow. But essentially, in the settings on Lulo, you could select or deselect different protocols or pools. Like you could choose two pools on Camino instead of three or one, or turn off XYZ.
Yeah.
And then something I should have mentioned, which I forgot, was safe routing. So for many, many months, we've had something called safe routing enabled for deposits of 50K or above.
Okay.
What we started noticing was not only is it less risky to split deposits across multiple protocols, but also it swings rates less. So we noticed as we were growing, if we were moving like a million or two at a time, or even less, we could swing the rate, right? So as we were moving from protocol to protocol, the rate would then,
Would
spike.
change
And
as you're sending it to one place.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So what safe routing does is not only does it spread risk, but it also keeps things a little more stable, pun intended.
Yeah, yeah.
And what we have here too is uh, after a few months of safe routing operating as designed, now if you have $1,000 in value or more, you could turn safe routing on. So you could choose to split your money across, one is not really splitting, two or three protocols, and it'll split it as evenly as possible.
Yeah.
And then you're not only getting the best rate at any time, but you're also mitigating risk.
Yeah.
So that theme will continue into 2025. And I think yeah, that I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like I've heard like people, I don't know where exactly they're getting this, but people just like very like allergic to any sort of smart contract risk. Like I've always been fine with it, right? Like I trust the protocols. I've seen them work. I've put money in, taken money out. Like I haven't seen a big issue. And typically, my $1,000 that I deposit in something is probably not what people are going after if there's $1 billion in the protocol, right? Like so I don't know what exactly that is about, but I don't think that it's as that's as big of a risk as a lot of people think. Am I wrong to think that? I mean, I guess it's
I'm
everyone's different opinion, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like I should never say it's not risky or there's no
Yeah,
risk,
yeah, yeah,
but I know for like me personally, I've been participating in DeFi since 2018, 2019, even though I've
yeah,
been around crypto for longer. Um, I've never had money that was in DeFi get hacked or lost,
yeah,
but I've been scammed, I've been phished, I've had my
yeah,
wallets compromised, but it was never in DeFi. It was never a DeFi protocol. It was never, some kind of loss of funds in that regard. So, for me, I'm like you. I don't feel the same risk that maybe someone else would,
yeah,
but the reality is there is risk, and we need to be honest and upfront about it, right? And I think
yeah,
like the more transparent, the more honest, uh um uh the more we address it head on, the safer everything becomes. And that's definitely something we're conscious of.
yeah, yeah. And I like that you guys are upfront about like all the different security, all the different protocols that you guys use. Like the overall UI of your website's amazing, but if you want more detail, it's easy to get more detail too, right?
Yeah.
Like if I imagine most like 90% of the time that I go there, it's like deposit. But a couple other cases, it's like, all right, let's see what else they have going on. Um, and another thing is like you don't just need to use USDC or Tether. You guys offer multiple different coins on there as well. So if you have, if you think that USDC is the Fed coin and you only want to use Tether, you can do that. Or like you said, was it USDS, the Sky,
Yeah.
their coin,
Yeah.
PayPal's, and it's, I kind of spread them out a little bit because different ones will spike at different times, and it's worth to have a little like I
Yeah.
like all the stable coins. They've all been fairly stable this whole time,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like Tether's
I
been very stable for a very long time, despite many people calling for its death.
Yeah, yeah. And when Silvergate happened, and there was all
Yeah,
the FUD around Circle and USDC, I bought as much of it as I could with Sol. It was
yeah,
like
yeah.
trading at 70 or 80 cents. And I was like, this is
It,
just free money. It's gonna repeg. I'm good.
yeah, it
Um,
was because that was like it was the weekend, and right, that's what happened. It was Silvergate, it crashed on the weekend, and USDC started to go down. It was a wild time. I guess we
yeah,
should start with that, but it ended up repegging like really quick.
yeah, it was some weirdness, and I don't want to go too I don't I can't recall the details well enough to dig into it too deeply, but what I do say today is like there are different stable coins, and whichever one is like the flavor of the month that you want, or whichever one fits your personal risk profile. Like for me, I like the idea of USDC and PYUSD. I like the fiat backed. I like the one-to-one convertible. I like the idea that I could send it to PayPal and get my basically converted, right there in app, and it doesn't cost me anything. Same
Yeah.
thing with USDC through Sphere.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Sphere is
yeah,
fantastic.
phenomenal.
That's like a Coinbase killer in my mind. I mean, just the early start of it, like of what I'm seeing and how easy that was to use, and it was free. I mean,
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah. But I personally, so for anyone listening, because I've been asked, like, what's your stablecoin strategy with Lulo? Because like people see the rates are different, right? People see the rates change and spike. And me personally, I hold I hold USDC, PYUSD, and USDS. I don't
Mhm.
have USDT right now, although I used to in the past. Um, USDT is probably the least popular on Solana, surprisingly.
Yeah,
USDC, USDS, and PYUSD currently have the best rates, and USDC is accepted for payment processing on different like crypto apps or crypto enabled payments much easier than the rest.
yeah,
But also it's a risk mitigation factor. God
yeah,
forbid, on the fucking crazy outside chance that something happens to one of them, I'm diversified, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's the same reason why personally I have more than one Lulo account.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of risk mitigation. I have, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good idea. Now, I have another question too. So there are other coins that you could actually lend on Lulo. Like
Yeah,
you can lend Bonk, you could lend Sol. Um, like is that highly used? Like are people farming Camino points with that or what? I
I
guess.
think people are farming us a little bit, to be
Oh, are they?
honest. I think so, if we're being really, really, really real. Like, I think people
Yeah,
are trying to farm us a little bit. But that being said, Jupiter and Bonk basically have no real lending or borrowing markets. Like, people
yeah,
lend it they use it as collateral. They don't
yeah,
actually lend it out for interest.
yeah.
Um, as of right now, the majority of our directed liquidity is USDC, 51 point something million.
Uh-huh.
PYUSD is 14.3 million. USDS is 6.37 million. And then the rest is made up of LSTs, Jupbonk, and Sol.
Uh-huh.
Now, in DeFi, and this is pretty true on any chain, uh, traders lend their cryptocurrencies for stablecoins. So they're
Yeah, yeah,
lending BTC, ETH, Sol, whatever it might be, meme coins now in the alt market on Camino to borrow stables. And
yeah,
they do that because the stables are stable and they know the value. It retains the value once they take the loan out. And then they go and do whatever they're doing, right?
yeah.
Um, I know, like I was on DC Startup Week, I was on a panel talking about crypto, and there was a lovely woman who had taken out a loan on her ETH in stable coins, bought a home with the stable coins. While the loan was active, ETH price went up exponentially. The loan made her money.
That's
So
so
there's
crazy.
like it's incredible, right? And like I just love using that example as like a way to anecdotally understand the borrowing and lending market a little better. But like she's not a trader, right? She wasn't like
Yeah.
going to borrow stables to 10x some other shitcoin. She was going to do something in the real world. And I
Well,
think that's
think about the implications of that too, right? Where if she was to just sell her ETH, um, depending on where she bought it at, she might have to pay capital gains tax on, whatever, the additional amount that she made on that from her original purchase. So say that's like 20-30% off the top right there. Maybe you take out a loan, that's a couple percent where she was able to do that whole transaction without paying any capital gains tax on that. But I also think that this is like really confusing. So I think that people historically, like I know that like I think Eric Voorhees did this a while back. He like lent ETH, borrowed stables, he bought a house. And he was talking about doing this at like the ETH highs. So ETH was at like 4K when they were doing this. And it's like I always have wanted to hear the follow-up. Like, okay, so ETH was at 4K, you borrowed your money. Like, did you get liquidated on all that ETH when it went down to like 1,000 or $1,600 or whatever it went down to? Like, obviously he's like, turbo wealthy, so he probably covered it. But I don't know how that would actually work. Like you would have to constantly be adding collateral to that loan so that you wouldn't get liquidated, right? Like
yeah, I think so.
I've always thought about like I need to do something cool with DeFi where like I'm gonna buy the Solana phone, I'm gonna lend Sol, borrow USDC, and then I'm gonna buy the Solana phone. It's gonna be super cool and I'm gonna get it for free. And like actually like I'll just buy it. It seems like
Yeah.
it seems like a really tough thing to build a strategy around.
Yeah, totally. You've made me think of a few things. So I don't know if you know Ashen, but he's pretty
It sounds
active on
familiar.
Twitter.
Yeah.
He took like a credit card loan out to buy Soul,
Oh no.
and it's been
Oh, it's probably good
mostly
now. Yeah.
it's good now, but it was
Yeah.
mostly underwater for a while, and I thought that was like an interesting kind of example of
That's degen. I mean,
super degen.
credit card APY is high,
Yeah.
man. What are you paying? 30% on that?
I don't know, something stupid. But then the other thing that you made me think of was Chamath Palihapitiya bought a home in Tahoe with
Oh yeah.
Bitcoin
Yeah.
in like 2017 or 2018, and he now, like, whatever that home cost him then, it's now like
What
he
are
paid.
billions?
Yeah, exactly. Had
Yeah.
he taken out a loan on the Bitcoin to buy the home, he'd actually be in profit on both sides, right? So
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
fascinating. I am just dying to see crypto lending savings on chain turn into these other modalities in traditional finance, like mortgages and provenance and titles. And we didn't even get to talk about like NFTs and like how those
Yeah.
actually will apply to the real world, because they're not going to just be animal JPEGs, right? Like
Yeah.
it's far more useful for like the title, the deed, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I actually released this podcast on Drip. It's where I actually have like most of my followers are on Drip. So it's released as an NFT, right? Like they deposit the full audio in Drip House. So it goes into Arweave, and then they send out CNFTs from there to anybody that wants to secure it. And it's like, it's 10 drops to secure it, which is like a cent or two. And
Nothing.
it's like such an amazing platform, but it's completely turned the idea of NFTs on its head, right? Like I was pretty resistant to it in the beginning. I was like, hey, you're coming after my monkey, like you're devaluing my NFTs, my bags are going down. But the flip side of that is like, hey, this is a really good distribution method. And we're seeing, the use of cool technologies in different ways. Like could that be a receipt when you buy something? Yeah, it's like, it costs nothing to send these, so it's great. So, um, yeah, I think it's cool, and I think innovative ways to distribute things, and especially Solana native, it's like there's so many cool protocols coming out and so many cool different ways to do things. It's just
Yeah.
fun to play with them.
So I was borderline embarrassed when I realized that I wasn't following you on Drip. So I
Oh,
just I just
I
followed you on Drip and
we got
gave
the
you
follow.
500 droplets. So
Oh, let's go.
yeah. I was a major Solana Spaces fan. Like
Uh-huh.
I wrote articles about it. I went to the store as often as I could.
Yeah,
Vibu and I became friends not because of like any like because of the space, like because I was obsessed with the location. And I've been following Drip from day one and participating. And frankly, I was so surprised when I wasn't following you. So
yeah, it's great.
rectified.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I love the platform. It's so cool, and it's like only kind of scratching the surface as to like what they can do with it, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
yeah,
see what ends up happening with it, but it's a great platform, and I mean, honestly, with how easy it was for like how easy they made it to get my podcast on there, like it's going to be huge, like for content creators, for anything, like they can
yeah.
take video and everything, so it's pretty cool.
Democratized distribution, man. It's
Yeah,
crazy. Like
yeah,
if you, I mean, it's easier now than ever before, but like, are you releasing the pod on like RSS feeds, and like is it
yeah,
going to, yeah,
yeah.
like
So it goes
that's
to
not
Apple, Spotify, it
right.
goes everywhere. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I listened to it on Overcast, which is like
Oh, did you?
yeah, it's like a different podcast app on the iPhone, and I'm just like a legacy user, and I'm too lazy to switch to Spotify or Apple
Yeah, yeah.
Podcasts. But yeah, like I know that is like there's a whole distribution. It costs you to distribute. It costs you to, manage all of that. And drip could be a super cool new distribution method.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome, and yeah, they're couldn't say enough good things about their team. They're great. All right, let's see. What else do we have? What else do we need to know about Lulo? I feel like
So
it's awesome. People just need to use it. Give it a try, right? Like
yeah,
there's no minimum, there's no time lockup, right? Like if you pick the coin that you're comfortable using, put it in there for a little bit. I think it even counts like how much yield you're getting in real time now, so you can see it.
yeah. So you could
Yeah.
see your yield grow in real time. We do actually have $100 value minimum deposit,
Oh, there is. Okay. Okay.
but
I didn't even know that.
but it doesn't cost. There's no like transaction fees. There's no migration fees, management fees right now. And yeah, like you earn the best yield possible at all times, and we make it so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
You know, what I would add for like sound bites or things that like I would want included is like we're building a consumer app. We believe that, you know, consumer finance is mostly managed on people's phones these days. More
Yeah.
people own smartphones and access the internet via smartphones than desktops or laptops. And for me to be able to tell my aunt or my neighbor or my cousin, hey, check out Lulo, they're going to think about iOS App Store. They're going to think of Android App Store. They're going to want an app on their phone, just like Wealthfront or Robinhood or Acorns, you know? And so like that's our next, that's like what we're focusing on right now is just continue making Lulo as you see it today as robust as possible.
Mhm.
And the consumer app is going to hopefully be like the major unlock for the next step of our evolution and development. If you're able to deposit into Lulo with Apple Pay, you know, if you're able to
Oh
connect
yeah.
your bank, like those are game changers. So, you know, we've always for the last several months we've talked about like fiat on ramp off ramps, direct deposits, debit card, like these are consumer app, like these are things that we're focused on, and we're making headway and we're getting there for sure.
Yeah, and with all of what you just said, like on-ramping and off-ramping, like that has traditionally always been the hardest part in crypto, is to like get money on, get money off, and do it cheaply. Where it's like we're seeing like good competitors. Like we brought up Sphere earlier. Like you can just withdraw crypto, it goes straight to your bank. It's took a couple hours and it costed zero. Like that is what we're seeing right now. But like with the regulators, like all regulations are going to lighten, right? Like crypto is no longer going to be, in this gray area. And I think that that is going to be the major unlock. You guys can have an app, put money on there cheaply, and maybe send money directly from just a normal bank account to it. Like that's going to be the unlock, right? Where first of all, like it's not illegal to do, semi-illegal to do. It's an app that you can download directly from the App Store and you can use it, right? I feel like that's going to be just like massive.
Yeah, yeah, I mean so like before I joined Lulo, taking my vitamins, before I joined Lulo, I was consulting, and I still have my consulting agency, but um I had interviewed with some teams and I had interviewed with some projects, and I was always kind of like, what am I willing to put my name on? Like,
Yeah.
what am I willing to like associate my personal brand with?
Because you kind of take it all in. Like when I feel like when you're like with a company, like even when you were with Monked Out, like you were all in. You were like, hey, this is my face. I'm gonna talk. This is me. Like you go all in on something, right? So that's what
Exactly.
that's what you're doing with Lulo now. And it's like, all right, I had to reach out, I had to hear more. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, so like when I went full-time crypto, I was like, I'm gonna be doxxed. It's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
build trust, reputation. People will automatically assume I'm not trying to fucking take advantage of them.
yeah,
And Lulo, when I met the founders, it was like one of the first things that I had seen or felt or experienced that felt like mass market. It felt
yeah,
like the early days of Apple, the early days of, you know, something that will be highly influential. And I I feel it now. I feel it like in my gut. Like this could really be a game changer for a lot of different people, and essentially improve lives, right? Like at the end of the
yeah,
day, me personally, like I believe in crypto as a great equalizer of the world. I want to see Lulo and the promise of, you know, using stable coins and DeFi, the promise of blockchain tech, like improve lives. And um I saw that with Lulo, and that's like why I was willing to put my name and my face on it.
Yeah,
But
and I
now
think
I've,
something to think about there too is like I think the concept is timeless, right? Like this isn't a fad. It's not going to just like come and go. It's not a meme coin. It's something where it's like, hey, like we're incentivizing people to better their lives, save, and then we're going to give them the best yield that they possibly can on top of that. Like
yeah,
it seems like something that bull market, bear market, like maybe the rates will go down a bit in the bear market, but they're still going to be there and they're still going to be better than a traditional bank. Like that, how like it is amazing, right?
yeah. And I don't necessarily think I do think that we are now entering a new phase of the crypto markets. There's the meme of the super cycle,
Yeah,
but for me, I think it's more just like we're getting out of the cyclical nature of crypto boom and bust along with stock market boom and bust, and we're going to see much more stability, much more reliability, and much more like you could expect those rates to be in certain areas, right?
yeah,
During the bear market, the rates for lending stable coins were way lower because traders were not as active. But
yeah,
as institutions adopt crypto rails, as institutions adopt the use of stable coins, as institutions start to lend and borrow on chain instead of in the traditional ways, I think those rates will sustain, and I think the rates are going to just be better for longer.
yeah,
In my mind, as long as they beat inflation, as long as they beat, what you could get at a high yield savings account, then it's a no-brainer for me and many others. And conversations that I'm having with TradFi bros, like the rates that they can get now are not what they were, and
yeah,
crypto is looking a lot more appealing. And as they start to see like the new Trump regime that's going to come into power, crypto's friendly, right? Like he kind of
yeah,
has conflicts of interest. He's an NFT founder, and he's
yeah,
has money in a DeFi protocol. Like he's kind of incentivized to make sure that in the very least, we are not criminalized.
yeah,
And that has been the biggest fear for crypto participants is the lack of regulation meant criminality, right?
yeah,
And if we reduce the criminality and the feeling that participating in crypto is bad or not appropriate or not acceptable, I think these rates stay up, right?
yeah, yeah, 100%. Everybody that I've talked to, since the election has been like, hey, like this is huge for us. Like the gray area of everything taken out, like is that part alone, I think is going to be massive. And whether it's a crypto super cycle, like I, prices are going to go up and down, right? Like I think in general, I think what we're going to see is more of like a user super cycle or more of like an on-chain super cycle. Like I see myself using crypto way more in the next 4 years, right? Like every year in the last couple of years, like I just had my tax guy on yesterday. We were talking about like how every year it's like 5 times as many transactions over the last couple of years. So like it's going exponential, and things are only getting better, right? Like better payment rails, better savings accounts, better stores of value. It's like there is a lot that you can do and a lot that you can benefit off of. And it's like, younger, like I'm almost 40. So people that are younger than me, like they're more internet native than us, right? Like people are
Yeah.
coming up, it's like they understand crypto better than we do, just like inherently, right? So
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a lot more there. And yeah, these cycles are going to go up and down. No, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as low as they have been. So that's my view on that. And we'll see where it goes, but
I'm with you. I believe that too. I remember I graduated high school 2008, and the iPhone came out 2008,
yeah.
and like I'll never forget that feeling of like this. I was a photographer, and everyone then had a camera in their pocket, and everyone became a photographer. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking to myself, like, photography will never be the same. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's never been the same.
Yeah.
And today I have that same feeling about finance. I have that same feeling about crypto. Like it's never
Yeah.
going to be the same. and we're in for like a really beautiful, interesting journey now,
Yeah.
like there was like the the BC AC, like we now have before Trump, after Trump, and regardless
Yeah.
of where your political leanings are, regardless of how you feel about Republicans or Democrats, this should be good for the country. It should be
Oh
good
yeah.
for the industry. It should be good for the world. And
Yeah.
I have to stay positive no matter what. That's
Oh
like
yeah.
optimism, almost like a uh optimistic to a fault sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that same way, and especially even like, we had what a 10-20% drawdown recently, and I was like, I wasn't even really phased. Like maybe I'm not as short-term focused as I used to be, but like I was just kind of like, all right, like what it's gonna recover soon anyways,
I
like
mean,
we're
hopefully,
good.
hopefully you bought some dips
Oh
from
yeah.
the stable coins you kept in Lulo, and that's another great reason to use Lulo.
Yeah, well, I mean, it didn't hurt that Magic Eden dropped me some money yesterday too.
Good for
That
you. I'm
that was
glad.
that was
Awesome.
that was nice.
Awesome.
That was nice. I
Awesome.
feel like we're
Awesome.
coming up on a little airdrop super cycle coming up in the next few weeks too. So
Yeah, yeah, airdrop season. And that's another, like, I've been very adamant and open. Like, if you're selling your airdrops, sell them into stables, put it into
yeah,
Lulo, take profits. Like,
yeah,
yeah, that's been the wave recently.
yeah. That sounds good. Well, what else you guys have coming up? You guys dropping a coin on us sometime soon?
No coin
No,
news,
go.
no.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like Lulo's pretty vanilla, man. And I
yeah.
like it, and we like
I
it.
like. I kind of like it that way too.
Yeah, we've had no points. We've
Yeah,
had no point system of our own. We've had no referral system. We don't talk about a token because we have no news to share about a token.
yeah,
It's been purely like use us because we are a good product and you find benefit from it.
yeah.
But
And I do, I definitely do. Like that's why I was so excited to have you on because like I genuinely think that Lulu is a great platform. So I love what you guys are doing.
thank you so much. Yeah, so like just we're beefing up security measures, we're beefing up risk monitoring, beefing up risk mitigation. We're building the consumer app, and I think 2025 is going to be the year of meme coins, stable coins, and adoption. And we're going to
Yeah.
start to see tons and tons and tons of adoption in different areas, in different ways, and we're trying to set ourselves up to be, at the forefront of that.
Hell yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think you guys are. I think you guys are perfectly placed for it and great protocol. I want all the listeners to check it out because it is really good. It's worth checking out and definitely appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. I know we ran a little bit longer than how you originally wanted to. I don't want to hold you back from your fiance who has tested positive for COVID.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get in trouble with her, but I definitely want to meet up
No.
with you at some point. I'm trying to go to Abu Dhabi this year. We'll see how things go.
Yeah,
But definitely love to meet up sometime in person. And if you guys ever do have anything else to launch or you ever want to chat stables, you're welcome to come back on.
absolutely. I'll definitely hit you back up to come back on the pod sooner than I think.
Okay. Yeah,
And
you guys launch your app, come on, do a
yeah.
little demo. Dude, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, so that's something that we can do. I know we're still recording, but now we're just kind of talking like we're just having a conversation. Either way, um I would love to do a demo on the pod for, whatever coming up, any releases that we do. That's super fun. And usually makes it like a nice dynamic shift from the normal talking heads.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, dude, pleasure, pleasure, pleasure chatting.
Really appreciate the time. Thanks again, Maurice. Take it
All
easy,
right,
man.
later,
Bye.
bro.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Solana Weekly. Once again, this is Thomas Bahamas, and I have one final ask for you guys. If you could, please subscribe on whatever player you're listening to. You could leave a review. That would be amazing. If you want to shill me your bags, work for them. But yeah, really appreciate it. And as always, this is not financial advice, but I want you guys to accelerate, move forward, and let's get this bag. I'll catch you guys next week.